Good evening, guys. Let me just do something real quick. Hi, guys. Good evening. How are you? Today's video, before we get started, is brought to you by Rate Family. Death in your family can absolutely be hard, but unfortunately, we all have to deal with it, and all of us leave behind final expenses like funeral costs, medical bills, other debts. In fact, the average funeral is between $8,000 and $9,000. Having no insurance when you die can leave your loved ones with a huge bill to deal with, and nobody wants that. So take control of your family's destiny today and have the satisfaction they will be financially taken care of. Visit ratefamily.com and get a free quote. No waiting periods, 100% benefits. Even if you've been turned down before, they guarantee coverage for everyone, no matter the situation. Some members pay as low as $36 per month due to income. Please visit ratefamily.com or call 1-855-919-RATE. You will be glad you did. Thanks, guys. Welcome. Thanks to Rate Family, too. Welcome. Just going to bring my other audiences in here. I'm supposed to also tell... Hold on. I'm live. Gigi, my amazing person, she puts everything all over the place for me. So I just had to tell her I was live. Here's the deal. I'm going to go through this article, this story I just broke on Carter Page. Really interesting stuff. And to be quite honest with you, it puzzled me for days. I sat here scratching my head like, what is going on here? So much research, so much reading. But let's just get into the story. Carter Page's 302's shed light into his relationship with the intelligence agencies. So we know that Carter Page had a relationship with the FBI and the CIA. But we're starting to learn through some releases that are coming out a little bit more about those relationships. So let me make this bigger for everybody. There was a FOIA lawsuit that went forward between Jason Leopold of BuzzFeed and CNN wanting to get their hands on the Mueller 302's. And they ended up winning that lawsuit. And the DOJ was told they need to produce at least 500 pages of documents every day. Every month, every day. My goodness. So we're getting those releases in tranches. And what I find most interesting about this before we get into the actual story is that I don't see anyone else reporting on this. Like CNN's not reporting on any of this information. There's a lot of exculpatory information in there. Of course, they're not telling you what it is. The bigger story is that nobody reported on this in particular. To me, the fact that nobody reported on this in particular is more telling than this in and of itself. Recently released information under a decision in a FOIA lawsuit have shed new light into the interviews of dozens of figures questioned in the Mueller special counsel. The FOIA requests brought forth by CNN and Jason Leopold of BuzzFeed were litigated, with the judge ultimately deciding in favor of the plaintiffs and ordering the government to release 500 pages of documents a month until the request is satisfied. The releases are comprised of 302 forms. They're all the written summaries of the interviews that FBI agents conducted with various figures in the special counsel investigation. Some really tangential figures that have no idea, not a real connection to the story, and some that are very crucial to the story. A close review of these 302 forms, especially those of Carter Page, reveals more context in regards to his possible work within the CIA, as well as the role that the CIA may have had in the spying operation against President Trump. The ones that have been released detail interviews conducted during March of 2017. That's March of 2017. We don't know whether or not more interviews were conducted with Carter Page after the official appointment of the special counsel. In one of the 302's, recording an interview with Carter Page on March 30th, 2017, he's asked about working with this guy Bulatov and Podobny. And these were the two Russian intelligence assets that were indicted in that FBI case where Carter Page is identified as male 1. This is the case that has been misrepresented by legacy media for several months after Carter Page first emerged as a figure in the dossier. For months, the press insinuated that Page was a Russian asset under investigation by the FBI, when in actuality he was assisting the FBI. The 302 indicates that Carter Page is aware that Bulatov is a member of the Russian intelligence services, the RIS. He states that he only provided, quote, immaterial, non-public information to Bulatov. At that point, the interviewing agent who's talking to Carter Page introduces the idea that the SVR could actually consider Page a witting or unwitting, quote, on-the-record source for the Russian intelligence services, and Page questions the statement, stating that he, quote, wanted to set a positive example for relations with the United States and Russia and set an opposition angle to the way the relationship had been interpreted for years. He then offers that the relationship was not a back channel and, quote, I'm sure I'm on the books. They know who I am. So I'm reading this and I'm like, is Carter Page admitting to working with the Russian intelligence services right now? Like, wow, that's something. Okay, so I keep reading, of course. After some more conversation about the FBI case that Page had assisted in, Page states he wants nothing to do with espionage and he was only trying to help in interviews. And then the people that he was talking about being interviewed by, that he was trying to help, was redacted in the 302s. But there's so much more. The SSA, the supervisory special agent that's conducting the interview, explains to Page that the RIS, the Russian intelligence services, have been tracking him likely since he lived in Russia. He worked with Gazprom. And so Page pushes back on that they were tracking him between 2008 and 2013. And he says he only had periodic meetings. The meetings were always in public. And the agent tries to explain to him that those are actually the types of interactions that they use to develop sources. And that based on information the FBI had, Page was likely on their, quote, books. Page replies, understood. And then the agent says, well, you were probably a really attractive target for them, given that you were working on the Trump campaign. Page puts his fist down, pushes back. He had no contact with any of them during any of his trips to Russia, etc. Then the interesting thing comes in. It appears that Page tries to hint to the FBI agents that he was working on behalf of the CIA as a source for the RIS, and give them some idea of where the Russian collusion narrative began. At one point, Page references the 9/11 Commission report conclusion. And one of the major conclusions in the 9/11 report was that the reason 9/11 happened was a lack of communication between the CIA and the FBI. As per this 302, Page intimated that the allegations of Russian interference into the election are a repeat of the USIC failures leading to the 9/11 attacks. In other words, if the CIA and the FBI just talked some more, they'd know what was going on here. Super interesting. In another 302 from the day after that, the interview again shifts over to the prior contacts with these two Russians from the indictment. In a section titled, quote, relationship to the Russian intelligence services, an interesting exchange takes place. The supervisory special agent begins to describe like the varying levels of intelligence contacts that Russian intelligence officers maintain. And the 302 notes that Page interrupts them, stating he is probably the, quote, highest level contact. Then he references Bulatov and Podobny and states, the more immaterial, non-public information I give them, the better for this country. He then goes on to reference himself as being, quote, on the books. And at that point, the special agent conducting the interview asks if he understands what that actually means. Because at that point, Carter Page is basically offering up that he is working with the Russians. And he says the FBI defines on the books as being in some sort of a source handler relationship, either witting or unwitting, with the RIS. And they go on to ask him again if, including the circumstances of his relationship with that, Page was on the books, and he agreed that he was. But he tells the agents that he doesn't like when they characterize him as working with the two Russians. What he's trying to do, I think, is put a delineator down, hint to them that he's working with the CIA without having to come out and say he's working with the CIA. And that's, after all of the research that I've been doing, what I've come up with. Now, I don't know what his function was with the CIA, nefarious or otherwise, or what his role in this is. But I do know that I reached out to him for comment, and he did comment. He said, in a really rushed conversation, he said, I'm in a really big rush. I don't have a lot of time. So I said, okay, let me cut right to the chase. I told him, in these 302's, it appears as though you're working with the Russian intelligence services. They write that you say you're on the books, blah, blah, blah. He says, it's false. It's false. It's all misrepresented. All of this is going to come out of my book. It's totally false. So he's asserting that what the FBI documents in these 302 forms is not true. That is another big story, in my opinion. This is just what he said. I mean, I can only tell you what he said. I asked him if I could go on the record with that. He said, yes, it's there. Also, throughout the 302's page is clear, he states his dislike for Hillary Clinton, how the campaign had committed absolutely no collusion with Russia. He's never lied or committed any crimes. For the most part, after all the digging I did, the comments in his 302's line up with his testimony in front of the HPSI. He has obviously been the Kleinsmith portion of this, where Kleinsmith, now if you read the IG report, it says in there that the CIA doesn't call their people sources. That's not the language that they use. So he's very clear, the CIA is very clear that Carter Page was working with them. Kleinsmith, again, changes that to read whatever he says about Carter Page not being a source in order to move forward and get the FISA renewal. My thing here is this. My thing is, we don't have the unredacted FISA applications. And we don't know if this was included. We don't know if this was included. So if this is included in one of so they've determined that the last two renewals were bogus. And this interview was done in 2017, in March of 2017. So if they didn't include this in the FISA applications, there's an even bigger story here that we have no idea the details of yet. But everything is linked inside this article for you. I shared the print screens on Twitter of the relevant parts that I quoted. And I uploaded the section, which is the fourth section. It starts on page 138, and it goes all the way through for about 20 or so pages. Before Carter Page's 302's begin, Papadopoulos's are included. And I've read through those, and I have a couple things on that too, a few interesting things. Papadopoulos asserts that Carter Page called him via Skype and told him to back off, in quotes. Very interesting. Just lots of stuff in here. Not surprised that the CNNs of the world are not covering this. But it is a really important story. Like, this is very important, guys. It really is. So I would ask that you share this with your friends and your people who are following this story, paying attention to it. And that's my stream for the day. I don't want to keep you guys for too long. I know you're busy and have busy lives. That's it. That's what I got for you. If you guys appreciate the work I do and you'd like to become a patron, I really would be honored and blessed to have you. You can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/TracyBeans with a Z. You can find my PayPal address, paypal.me/Tracy Beans. Make sure to check out Uncover DC, which will have, you have no idea, we have posted 3 articles today. One from Dr. Carlin Borisenko about her walkaway, about how Donald Trump will be president for the next 4 years. one from Carol King that explains in detail with tons of sourcing the Chinese supply chain. The Chinese supply chain issues, the Chinese dependence that we have come to find ourselves in, and what President Trump has done and is doing to, remove that. Also on YouTube, within the next 48 hours, I will be uploading our interview with Svetlana Lakova. We did an hour and a half long interview with Svetlana Lakova on Monday, and it was absolutely amazing. So I'd like to put that up on YouTube for those of you who are not doing podcast apps, which you should be doing. And check the description box for information about our sponsor, Rate Family. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please share this article. I'm telling you, this is very important. Talk to you guys soon.